Hi, Steve Cassidy here. I want to talk now about HTML5 and adding media to your web pages in HTML5. So I have this overall page structure, and I've just added a few more sections because I want to show some examples of media embedded in the page. This first example should be familiar to anybody who's done some HTML before, and that is embedding an image in the page. The image tag has been there since the early days of HTML and is fairly straightforward. We have the source attribute here that has a URL for the image that we want to actually embed, and here I've got a PNG image, and we have an alt attribute that gives some alternate text that could describe the image if for some reason the image can't be displayed, and that could be if we're looking at a screen reader for a blind user, or if the URL is not working. So if I break that URL, then I get this sample image text there shown. There are a bunch of other attributes. I can set the width and height of the image and so on. I can also set the title, something like that, and when that's rendered, if I hover my mouse over it, I get my little title there. But that's also an accessibility thing. It helps describe the image and might be useful to screen readers and so on. So that's the image tag. You might remember from the previous video that I also had an image here. Further down, I've got this image that I embedded in my sample content, and I use the figure environment there to wrap around that, and that has a caption. So that's sort of basically, I mean, inside the figure could be anything, not just an image, but that's sort of a way of sort of embellishing an image, if you like, and adding more stuff to it. If you remember, I made that float left in the style sheet as well, but we can embed an image fairly simply. The next section I want to look at is embedding video. And embedding video in the page is now pretty much as simple as embedding an image using in HTML5. The way that we do it is very slightly different, and I'll give a reason for that. We have the video tag here, and I've just got this controls attribute, and then inside that we have a source tag here, which gives the source of the video, src is this URL, and the type is video mp4. And again, I've acknowledged where that came from. So that gives us this display and a little player and the controls for the player underneath, so we can play that video. And we have an audio volume, and we've got a full screen widget and a download button as well for free with that. So that embeds the video into that page. One thing about videos, though, unlike for images, the support across browsers for different kinds of video is not as strong as it is for just plain images. And so some browsers don't understand all different formats of video. And so in general, just saying here's an MP4 file, can you please play it, won't work in all browsers. And so if we want to try and keep things compatible for different browsers, we actually have to do something like this, which is to include in the file a number of different alternate formats that can be used in different browsers. And so here I've got an example where I've got a WebM video, which is a Google sponsored open format for compressed video, an OGV, which is another open video format, OGG video, an MP4, which we had before, and a 3GP for another compressed video format. Now what will happen here is that the browser will actually look down these and decide which of those it can play. So it will look at the first one, says, can I play WebM? And if so, it will do so. And then work down the list, and only if it sort of gets to the bottom will it then crash out and say, I have no idea how to display that. So here we're getting the same video, but you'll notice we're going to have to organize to serve all of these different kinds of videos from our server, which can be a bit of a pain. So one day the browsers on the web might all support the same video standards. At the moment, though, we have to do things like this to jump through hoops. There are a few other ways to get around this using plugins and things like that, so all is not entirely too complicated. And the final thing I want to look at is the audio control, the audio tag. And here's an example of an audio tag, and it looks very similar to the video tag. Again, I've got audio and I want controls, and the source elements in here are giving me different kinds of audio that may be supplied, may be able to be played by the browser. I've got a line of text here that says you don't support audio, and if the browser is so old that it just doesn't understand any of this stuff at all, it would actually just display that text. Otherwise it's going to try and interpret one of these two things as an audio tag. And so what I get in my audio sample is a little player like this. Again, I have the controls, and I can
we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
Play my sample bit of audio there. I can change the volume and I can download it. And so we can fairly easily embed some audio in the page like that. If I take away the controls bit, you notice it disappears. And what's happened is that it's still there, but there's just no way for me through the web page to play it. And I would need to use JavaScript to play that. So that's like a hidden thing. And you might, for example, have it mouse over. When you mouse over the panda, it might automatically play the audio. Another word on this controls thing as well. This is an example of an HTML attribute where it looks a bit different, because normally I would say controls equals, so I've got source equals something, type equals something. Here I just have controls. This is an example of a Boolean attribute. It's either there or it's not, and so it's like true or false. And you could say controls equals controls, I think is the way to do it, but you don't have to. You just say controls like that. So those are three examples of images, video, and audio embedding media into our web pages.